welcome back for another week, folks. It is another beautiful Monday out here. It's a little bit breezy, but nice and warm, and the crop is certainly responding to it. That beautiful weather over the weekend. These peas are really starting to grow now. So a lot of these are now at the 2-node stage. Some just hitting the 3rd node stage, like this one right here in my hand. This guy here is still basically 1 node, 2nd node opening, but overall doing really well. Roots are developing really nicely. Not really seeing nodulation yet, but that doesn't typically happen at this point quite yet. Probably in the next week or so, we might be able to see the start of nodulation. And also with peas getting to this stage now, the 3rd node stage, that puts us into the herbicide application window for peas, which is the 3 to 6 node stage. So that is usually about a 1 week long window, and that is when you want to be applying your Viper or Python for broadleaf weed control. Well, here's a clump of barley I just dug up. You can see we got a yellowing leaf on there, so that made me dig her up and take a look. What do I find? There's a wireworm in this group feeding on the stem here. So he just pulled himself out, but he was pretty well right into that stem there feeding, so that's probably going to minimum damage that plant heavily, may even cause mortality. Of course, this is treated seed, but you do still manage to see some feeding usually before the cruiser will put them to sleep.
Today is May 17th. I'm near Rentham, Alberta. We had a producer do a little trial for us last year where on November 3rd when he was spraying, we came out here and threw down a tarp. So what we have here is treated with Valterra last fall, November 3rd. And this area here is where the tarp was thrown down. You can see a lot of kochia coming in here. It's been a bit of a dry spring, dry year. That's where the fall application can really pay off.
Oh, and here's some of our lentils in the Nobleford area, and as you can see, they're doing real well. Sorry, I got to shelter them from the wind here. But we're coming into the 2-3 node stage on these now. So we're coming up on herbicide timing on these as well. So probably in the next week or so will be ideal herbicide timing for solo in these. And here now in the winter wheat where we sprayed the CS100 2525 last week, you can see these flick weeds. The growing points are pretty much torched on them, and they're really starting to curl up and go down. So we will see more progress on this week with this beautiful weather for sure. Well, here we got some canola starting to emerge out of the ground here in this dry land field, and this is a very, very dry field now. It hasn't had rain here in a while, and you can see we still have dry seed sitting here in the row, which is not ideal to see. You can see here, okay, there was one I just cut off, so there was one that had germinated there. So the stuff that got seeded deeper is germinating, but these shallower seeded seeds are still dry. I'm afraid I'm probably going to see a lot more of that this week until we get some rain. Well, we're Tuesday now, and any field that doesn't have crop emerged is starting to see a little bit of soil erosion. We got some pretty high winds out here today, and some soil is really starting to move around. But at least if we look at the weather forecast now, get in here. It's looking like we do have some rain or snow for Thursday, Friday. So hopefully they don't change that, because we certainly need it. Well, here's some of the emerged safflower, and as you can see, the cotyledons are now completely unfolded, and the first set of true leaves is coming out. You can see it's already starting to develop little thorns on those leaves, and of course, in a week or two, those leaves are going to be much bigger and much thornier. Well, you can see we got a whole pile of dust blowing in from the south where the fires were there a couple weeks ago. It is at least 80k winds out here today, so pretty windy. And how windy you say? Oh like that. Not a drop. Down by McGrath here now, and the weather is certainly a lot nicer than it was yesterday. Hardly a breeze down here today, and this barley is doing really well. We're just coming into the 3-leaf stage, so we're getting close to herbicide timing on this, and everything here is looking pretty good. Here you can see some of its volunteer canola down here is getting chewed up pretty good by flea beetles. So if you didn't have a seed treatment on your canola, this would be basically what it would look like. You can see these cotyledons are pretty much completely chewed off, and they're moving on to the first leaves on here. I haven't seen any damage in actually seeded canola yet, but on the volunteer I am starting to see it more and more. I'm down here by McGrath with Craig Olson, and he's going to tell you about his products today.
Perfect, thanks Lyle. Yeah, down here by McGrath, anyone who's following Twitter or some of the social media, you will notice that there are pockets of flea beetles showing up in some of this new canola. really foremost Medicine Hat, Fort McLeod, starting to get pretty bad. 25% threshold. It actually looks a lot worse than it is, but use a guide, talk to Lyle, and then have some silencer on hand for when you need to go in. Right here, we're in a field of peas actually, and having a little look around for pea leaf weevil damage. Anything south of Highway 1, really we should be looking very continuously for any damage. Once again, silencer. The biggest thing is spray when they are out. You want to avoid those high temperatures and protect that crop. You want to protect it so when you get into herbicide timing, like we are quickly approaching, we got about a two-ish node pea here. So this is going to be middle of next week, probably after this weather system goes through, that we're going to be approaching the timing for something like Python. So Python is Adama's new in-crop herbicide for peas, which replaces Viper, which has been really the industry standard up to this point. So thanks, Lyle. Any questions, for sure, reach out, give me a call.
Thanks,
Have a good
Craig.
day.
Definitely starting to see an increase in cloud cover coming up from the south here this afternoon. This particular area, I believe we're supposed to start getting snow and rain about 8 p.m. tonight, so better hurry up and get my fields done. Well, here by Lethbridge, I'm not seeing a whole lot of corn emergence. There's basically almost nothing up yet. It's all still just barely under the ground. This one was about a ½ inch under the surface, and that is probably pretty much ideal right now. Looking at the weather forecast, we're supposed to have, 5 to 10 centimeters of snow tomorrow. So corn, once it's emerged, is surprisingly tolerant to frost. The growing point is underground, so the tops can freeze off and it will regrow, but let's face the facts, we're in Alberta, we're not in Alabama. So if it does freeze off, that's obviously going to delay the crop, which might mean no crop in Alberta, or at least vastly reduced starch quality and quantity. So having it still underground like this should be insulated enough. It's not going to be hurt. I'm hoping things should be all right. Well, here by Lethbridge, we've got really good emergence of the canola. You can see these guys, we've got some of the first true leaves are coming out on them already, and there's no sign of flea beetle damage on any of these guys. Overall, they're looking really good. Some nice clear rows are forming, but unfortunately with the weather coming, I'm not quite sure what to expect. If we do get down to -6, -7, as some weather forecasts are suggesting, we might see some damage on these, but if we do get some snow on them to insulate them first, then they should be okay, but we'll know more in the next week. Well, it's another beautiful southern Alberta morning. We are -1 and snowing. We do have emerging canola here, but she's still pretty small, so we'll have to see how well this survives the frost and the cold. But really, we probably won't know for at least a few days, probably into next week, and then we'll be able to assess damage at that time, if there is any. Well, this barley isn't looking too worse for the wear, but you will see we do have a little bit of a scald infection going on in here already. And this barley is only about 2 leaves, so definitely have to keep an eye on that. Well, in some ways, winter cereals like this field here by Picture Butte could be hit the hardest by this, because that head that is developing is right here by my thumb now. So you can see that's quite a bit up from the ground level, which makes it susceptible to weather like this. And those little developing heads are very delicate, and we won't know, of course, for a couple weeks until that head emerges, but we could definitely see some deformation of that head, some twisting and some curling, but we won't know more for a while yet. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.